in terms of America and Western Europe and the Copenhagen talks last year, I guess you probably, like us, had some perhaps unrealistic hopes about what might be achieved. I thought one of the things I enjoyed about your website was it rather cleverly avoids labouring the climate change issue, but actually is really strong on all the things you would need to do which would actually affect the climate.
Yeah, well,
Is that a deliberate?
Yeah, you nailed it on the head. For me, it's I kind of learned early on, you come into this thing because I enjoy writing songs and being alone and kind of getting in the studio, creating this stuff. Then all of a sudden people remind you, hey, you got a spotlight on you, you should use that for things you believe in. And so then you start doing that stuff, and then somebody says, oh, it's going to really work well if you partner up with this on this recycle day in Hawaii, where it's with the government, these funds, so we can go a lot further. So all of a sudden you sign on. The next thing you know, it's like the whole thing changes around, your name's on this deal. And I kind of learned through a few different experiences that avoiding the politics of it all was the best way for me to stay inspired, to keep doing things with the education that felt like it was working, and not get so sick of it and just decide not to do it at all. It was sustainable in another way. It was sustainable for me to keep doing this stuff. And so yeah, avoiding politics as much as I can, and avoiding things that are the hot topics, but instead of being attacking the symptoms, it's like, let's go to the root of it and start working with kids on basically trying to cut down on food miles, doing things that are helping recycling in Hawaii. There's a bunch of good groups that are already working towards getting the bills passed and things like that. Let's focus on getting the kids ready, so if this stuff does happen, they even know what in the heck recycling is. We're so far behind in Hawaii. There's no curbside recycling on
Really?
most of the islands. So we're actually working where the kids have recycling bins in each classroom, and then the student body, they go around and collect it at the end of the day. And so we're just teaching them on this smaller level the whole system of, as if each room was a house, and here comes the truck, that picks it up and takes it down to this area, and then we have another group come in and pick it up and take it down to the recycling centers. So we're just trying to prepare the kids for when that next step is taken.
It's remarkably quick, actually. I mean, we have a policy here. We never tell people what to do. Often visitors will write to me and say, why don't you give us a piece of paper at the end with the 10 top tips to save the world, whatever. And I then always write back and I say, our visitors are intelligent enough to be able to make their own minds up. If you tell people what to do, they don't think about it.
Yeah.
But we put up all these recycling bins around the site. And what's really interesting is the families that are brought up that way, they do it. And you see the families that don't watch them doing it. And it's very interesting. No one says anything, but you can see them talking to their parents and whatever, and then blah, 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 blah. And you see them go and do it. And so I'm very hopeful, having seen the speed with which that culture has embedded itself here. I'm very hopeful. I mean, we've just twinned with the Maldive Islands in the Indian Ocean. We've this last week signed an agreement with the government to help them go carbon neutral over the next 10 years. And you're talking about food miles and things like that. That's the really tricky issue is that, because they grow hardly any food there. Unlike Hawaii, they don't have, it's not a God's gift of a country for growing food. But they also have a lot of tourists flying there. And how you handle that is really getting them to carbon neutrality in terms of themselves is remarkably easy with the sun and wave power and so on. But once you throw in the plane flights, it's a bugger. But I noticed that you travel pretty light, don't you, with your coaches on biodiesel and your domestic studio solar powered?
Yeah, as much as we can. It's touring has a pretty big footprint no matter how you slice it, and so we try to do all these things, running the buses on biodiesel when we can, and things at the show, trying to cut down on the single-use plastic, having refillable water bottle stations, and recycling in a more comprehensive way when we can, and all these little things we can do to try to make the industry a little better. So hopefully the venue picks up on it when we leave, and then at the end we try to offset, carbon offsets, and try to do them as localized as we can on where we're touring with groups that are doing it from that area. And then at the end of it all, I mean, what has really made the touring real rewarding for myself and everybody involved is we donate 100% of the proceeds from the tour to not only environmental education, but also music and art education as well. And it's
well, we at Eden are in your debt, so thank you very much indeed for your support.
Yeah.
It's delightful.
No, it's fun for me to bring the family here and to get to learn. And it's great.
No, because you had a prolonged stay here in Cornwall. We're not talking, of course, about your Hurricane Strat gig last year.
Right.
Because I think that was when you first visited us in the flesh, wasn't it? After you were in the terrible weather.
Yeah, you know, I actually didn't even get to come. My family came that day.
Oh, didn't you?
And I had to go to a radio show to basically apologize for the show not happening and to make sure to get the word out that it wasn't happening so there wouldn't be too much traffic and all that.
You don't think they guessed? The gate was 10.
Just to make sure, I guess.
So tell me about your first trip to Cornwall. What drew you here in the first place?
I didn't know much about it, but I knew that there was surf, and it was the surf that brought us. I think there was, in the very beginning when we were first touring, anywhere that had a small surf population was where we'd go, because that was the people who had maybe heard some of my music from surf films that me and some friends were making. And so, yeah, our booking agent kind of looked into it and said this is the spot where there's enough interest to actually fill a little. I think we played, the first spot we played, it was maybe a college campus. And kind of like, it seemed like almost like the,
was it down,
cafeteria or something?
Yeah, probably, yeah. That's great. It takes, what is it? It takes you 10 years to become an overnight sensation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, we've been working on it, and it's, yeah, so we always like to come back, because not only because it's nice people to play to and everything, but I love to get a few waves in. We just surfed this morning before we got over here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, you managed to sell out the gig here in literally as fast as it could be done. It was like,
all right,
Jack's coming. It was like watching the slot machines go round in terms of numbers. Very, very popular, and deservedly so.